Hi, I'm Siobhan,
And I'm Sabi.
and we are the therapists at Restore Tranquility. And today's topic, we're going to be talking about cannabis and mental health and the misconceptions that still exist in the world and how we can break those misconceptions and help people to come into 2025 thinking of cannabis in a broader sense, in a more therapeutic as well as spiritual aid into their lives. And so
So yeah,
start.
let's start by going back. Let's actually get the history out the way first, because I think that's a lot of the place where people don't understand where it came from and how it just did not come onto the scene as being this gateway drug. Like
Yes, in the 1960s, suddenly.
right? Yeah, it was. It had been here since the 19th century, like when they were actually first exploring it, and that's actually where one of the biggest misconceptions I think when it comes to sativa and indica,
Yeah,
it does not mean what you guys think it means.
right.
So sativa is actually referred to the actual um, the physical characteristics of the plant, versus indica versus is actually because it was grown in India. So it has nothing to do with whether it makes you more uplifted versus more sedated.
Yeah,
So I think that's a very common, but the thing is, it was those words, those phrases, the terms hopped on so quickly that people were just like, oh yeah, let me get a sativa, let me get an indica,
Yep.
let me get a hybrid, and they don't even mean those same things. You're not going to get the same results of I want a hybrid here versus I want an indica here. It's not the same. So
Right.
that's a really big misconception.
Yeah, and I think part of that is just our American, or particularly our English language way of categorizing.
Yes.
And we have this need in our culture to categorize things. And whenever you categorize something, whether it's right or wrong, you put limits on it.
Yeah.
You just narrow it down. And when you think about other cultures and how they speak about things, they have broader visions or broader ways of looking at most things than we do.
So it's that cognitive distortion of that black and white thinking, that all or nothing. It has to fit in this perfect box,
Yep.
or else it does not count.
Exactly. We see it in our medical system, right? We go to the doctor about a pain or something going on in one area of our body, and we go to the specialist for that one area. They don't even talk about the other parts of your body till when we talk about holistic, right? Holistic medicine or holistic therapeutic properties of something, we are thinking of the whole rather than these narrow parts of our bodies, of our minds, of cannabis and other substances.
And so when it comes to the actual medicine and where, it really, we can't necessarily say that no one country can say that they, invented or like where cannabis really came from, right?
Nope.
But we have, different African spiritual practices. We have the different Chinese herbal, right? And then there's also even going back with the Buddhist and Indian cultures as well.
Yes, even in India, as yoga evolved, so did Ayurvedic medicine. And in Ayurvedic medicine, cannabis was used broadly and widely. And one of my favorite stories when I was training for my first yoga teacher training was learning about the god Shiva and his part of his connection with human beings on this planet was at the end of a tragedy that he saved the planet from, he gave human beings cannabis. If you ever look up a picture of Shiva on Google, he is a Nati Dread blue muscular character, and he is always associated with two things: yoga and cannabis.
That's it. Yeah, I've never heard that story. So that's very because you as also a trained yoga therapist, I think you bring in another like caveat, another level to how cannabis can be used in different modalities. And for me, it's more I do the coaching and the education more for just teaching people about it, that, okay, you got your medical card, or maybe you are trying it recreationally, but they have no idea how to actually use it.
Right, right.
And so I think that's what makes, even us coming together really just
Yeah.
kind of pulls it in just a little bit extra, right?
Yes, absolutely. A piece of history too, American history, up until the 1930s, cannabis was legal.
It was in everyone's medicine cabinet.
Everyone.
You could get it from like a CVS.
Doctors, yep, doctors prescribed it for a host of things.
Yeah.
Whether it was pain, for sleep, for birthing
Mm-hmm.
practices. Everybody, kids were
Yes.
prescribed cannabis. It was not this demonized drug
Mhm.
that we now have, we're trying to dig our way out from this belief system in.
And I think you were correct about the date of like the 1960s, around that time where it really just started to, they used cannabis and they called it marijuana.
Mhm.
And for at least the American side of the history, it was
Right.
more for the DEA, Harry Anslinger, trying to weaponize it against for more racist stereotypes, right,
Yep.
against both Mexican immigrants
Yeah.
and Black and brown communities, a way to get them out of their housing, things like that,
Mhm.
by saying, oh, they're bringing over these drugs, they have these are the only things that they use, and it must be this gateway drug to all of this other bad things.
Mhm. And we must protect our young teenagers
Yeah.
from these bad influences.
Yeah.
If you ever look up the movie Reefer Madness, it was a propaganda movie that came out, I believe, in the 1930s, to get parents, white parents mostly, to keep their kids away from cannabis. And
That's really where it kind of really started, because
Yeah.
then now, and it's funny because people didn't realize that cannabis and marijuana were the same thing.
Exactly.
So that tells you right there, like, you don't even realize the actual thing that was in your medicine cabinet,
Mhm.
literally maybe 20 years prior,
Yep.
that you were able to get at like a CVS, is no longer, it is now marijuana. It's a
And
scary
it's
thing.
terrible. It's terrible and it's dangerous.
Yeah, so it's just, that's a whole nother thing. We can go a little bit more deeper, so definitely.
We can do a whole video just on that.
Yes, so definitely drop your questions, your comments below. If you want to know a little bit more about this, we can touch more on it. But that's the overview, you guys. Believe me,
Yeah.
dive deeper. There's a lot more information there.
Absolutely.
But when it comes to that, now that these last, maybe I would say 30 years, we've seen a lot of radical change. Maybe in the last 5 years, it's been even moving faster than it probably has ever.
Indeed.
With different states, having more dispensaries, recreational use, medical uses. And it was crazy because I find that I go to Canada, I hate to say it, but I go to Canada to get more of the research, because they have more of the research available.
Yeah.
When it comes to the US, it's like for every one or two good research articles that come out that actually show proof, there's 10 more that are fueled by people who want to keep the propaganda, want to keep the fear,
absolutely.
and they bury it. And so, we do have the research for cannabis. Like, a lot of people are like, we don't know that much about it. We know a lot about it.
Yeah, if you look up the research from Canada, Israel is
Yes.
another place that has a ton of research in reference to the therapeutic properties
Mhm.
of cannabis. As well as if you go back before, before psychedelics even were
Mm.
made illegal, there was a little bit of research that was going on back then as well. But you've got to dig, now the research is beginning again,
Yeah.
so it's going to take a while for those trials to wrap up and those articles to be posted, but we are starting to see them.
Yeah, they are coming out.
Fantastic.
Yes, because I mean, we want the public to have more access. It's one thing as us therapists, and we know where to look for the research,
Right.
but we want it to be more accessible for the public in general, and so therefore there has to be a lot of, okay, not put people into fear, just so therefore they can be like, oh, see, don't touch it, don't do nothing about it.
Mhm.
Or and actually, it's so funny, I think it was this week, it said that Maryland has now taken it off that you can't test for it.
Right, I did see a clip of that.
Yeah, so
Yes.
that's something they,
Yeah.
cause what that one, that, I think it was a bill, I'm not exactly sure. But I believe what the whole premise of that was, is we are, a recreational, Maryland here is a recreational and medical, so therefore we can get both.
Yep.
And why would we purposely, single out or stigmatize against
Yep.
employees when we are in a state that has it legally? It's nothing wrong
Yeah.
with you taking it, what you do on your off time.
Exactly.
So I'm really happy that at least Maryland is progressing forward with that.
I agree. I agree. That seems like a silly thing that they kept going in the states that have it legalized, and especially if it's legalized on both medical and recreation. It's like,
Right.
hello, like, are you testing for alcohol?
Well, right. Right,
You
exactly.
know, so it makes no sense. But what we are seeing in the research
Mhm.
is the benefits.
Yes.
Right. So the therapeutic, but we all know they're recreational.
Right,
Right.
right.
We know that people relax with cannabis, people socialize with
Yes.
cannabis. There's actually a new report that cannabis is starting to take over where people used to drink for
Oh, yes.
anxiety. Less drinking is happening and people are using cannabis instead. More women are switching over from the glass of wine every night
Yes.
to cannabis drinks
Mhm.
instead because they have less side effects.
Less side effects, a less chance, and again, this is for, using it with intentionality.
Right.
Using it with the understanding that I'm starting low and going slow. We're not just going for
Yes.
to keep going and to keep overwhelming yourself, like you're gonna actually doing it for a purpose, doing it to,
Mhm.
okay, I just need this a little bit just to take the edge off type thing.
Right.
But not going to it when it's like, oh, I'm trying to avoid.
Right.
So I think that's a good space where cannabis can be used in a therapeutic modality.
Right, even if you're not using it for pain.
Correct.
Right? So that's what we're seeing on the social end, but we're also seeing, and it's backed up now by research, people using cannabis for depression,
Mhm.
anxiety, to manage PTSD,
Yep.
addiction,
Trauma.
and trauma.
Trauma's a big
That's a
one.
huge one. When about, I would say a year and a half, 2 years ago, I worked with a gentleman, a young guy in his 20s, who had severe depression, the kind of depression that none of the pharmaceutical drugs could touch.
Oh, the medication resistant one. So that's, I mean, they've tried a lot and it's
He has
just.
tried all the things.
Mhm.
He had tried all the things. And he did a cannabis assisted psychedelic session with me. And it was the first time I could witness the effect of cannabis in a physical way.
Mhm.
When he came in, and I had met with him several times before we did our sessions, and each time, and if you know someone who is depressed, you can see how they wear their depression in their countenance, in their mood, in their energy, how they hold their body. And he began the session and he had that depressed look,
Right.
basically.
Yeah.
And I watched him through the hours of that session, how his body began to relax and release the tension, some shaking, some stretching, some yawning, like just completely released. When he sat up, it was the first time I'd ever seen him smile.
Wow.
And I worked with him for several sessions before that. And he actually smiled. And as he left that day and in the integration sessions that followed, you could see how that depression had lifted off of him. And so that made me a believer. Even though I knew it's one thing to know something, but to experience it or see it is a whole different thing.
To see it transform somebody.
Yeah.
And for those who are, we're gonna kind of go a little bit more into that, but that's something that we offer at Restore Tranquility, of actually having those cannabis assisted psychotherapy sessions. And journey works. And just knowing that we did a 2-day.
Yeah.
It was a 2-day. So a 2-day journey that can transform a weekend.
Yeah.
We can transform someone to actually work on that depression, work on that anxiety, be able to walk through a trauma without them being re-triggered.
Yes, and which I've done with people with PTSD. I had a client who had PTSD, who had history of sexual trauma years ago, and got triggered.
Mhm.
And it was interesting how she shifted from being a well put together
Right.
professional to just looking overly stressed out.
Mhm.
That flashback caused her to kind of almost devolve back into her old self. And we did some work
Yeah.
together with cannabis, as well as yoga, and got her back
Right to
where,
me.
yep, where she was.
And I think-
was.
I think that's where I want the public to know a little bit more about, you know, people who are maybe kind of curious or maybe have never tried or maybe tried that one time and they had it way too much. And they were just like, because everyone has a too much story.
Oh, yes.
Everyone has a too much.
The rookie experience.
Exactly, like it happens, and we're trying to, although we are trying to be more mindful now, let people know that hey, you have to really start lower. You have to start low and go slow, right? That's the biggest thing. If anything, you don't remember anything else, start low and go slow. Hi everyone, my name is Cerise Scott. I'm a licensed therapist as well as a cannabis educator and coach. I'm coming to you to let you know about our new cannabis coaching program through Restore Tranquility. We are here to offer, it's about an 8-week course where we get you to understand a better, dang. All right, we're gonna start this over again. Whew, all right. Hi, everyone. My name is Cerise Scott. I'm a licensed clinical counselor as well as a certified cannabis educator and coach. I'm here to introduce our cannabis coaching program through Restore Tranquility. Here we have a coaching program where we can not only incorporate more wellness into your routine, but have you better education, setting your intentions and knowledge about cannabis use, as well as how it can be more therapeutic for you, for your mind, body, and spirit, and including that holistic approach from a licensed therapist as well as a coach and educator. So more than anything, it is a stigma-free environment. Judgment is not here, but we want you to be comfortable using these therapeutic modalities and alternative medicines. So if you are interested, please click the consultation link below and schedule a quick 20-minute consultation with me, and I'll be happy to share my experience as well as share my education with you guys. Thanks. Bye. Cannabis itself is very much a shapeshifter.
Yes.
And how it can be for relaxation, how it can be for mental health and therapeutics, how it can be for physical wellness, but also how we can add that into the spirituality, which I think that's what we kind of do here when we actually take someone through a journey work. We add that spirituality and therapeutics together. Because, and when I've done a journey before with someone, I would say that they literally can, like, it's like they're seeing themselves walk through the things that are happening, but it's just, they're not having that visceral reaction. Just as you would get if you were in like a regular talk therapy session, we're talking about it, they're crying, they're just like, this is really hard to keep talking about. Cannabis, it's like they're able to, like, kind of like an outer body experience. They're able to watch and see, like, that was still a very difficult time, but I can see it without reacting to it. I can feel it. I can understand, what I felt in that moment, and it can be a lot more clarity. Which therefore, as therapists, the integration sessions after that, we're just like, let's journal about what you saw. Let's journal about that feeling that came up for you, maybe that pattern, that cycle, and it's totally like revolutionary.
It really is. It really is, because cannabis, when used in that way, allows you to be what the Buddhists call the observer.
Yes,
You
that's
kind
a
of
good one.
fan out a little bit, and you're able to observe whatever the situation was, or yourself, or your life from a completely different vantage point.
And one thing that one of my clients that did the journey work with me, she mentioned that she thought it was very interesting how quickly she could come out of it.
Yes.
She felt like, because that was one of the things, she's tried other things before, and so she was just like, I like the fact that I didn't feel like I was giving up control. I was able to, I didn't feel like I was in a space where I could not get back out if I wanted to. She sat up and was like, I gotta go to the bathroom, and just went to the bathroom, didn't need no assistance, would walk just fine and came back and put the cover back on. All right, I'm ready. And just went right back in.
Yeah.
But that's what, cannabis gives us that autonomy where we have more choices than other medicines.
Yes, very much so. And that's why it's such a good medicine for trauma. When you've already had autonomy taken away from you in whatever way, cannabis, if you want to step into psychedelic work, cannabis is the perfect medicine to work with first because you still are able to maintain your autonomy.
Absolutely. So let's pivot a little bit and let's talk a little bit about cannabis and how we break it down, the THC versus CBD.
Yes.
I think that's a really big thing because THC people run for the hills half the time. It's like some people are like, I don't want anything with THC. It's gonna be in my blood system. It's gonna make me feel different. But then we have other people that are like, give me as much THC as I possibly can get.
Right.
Y'all, we gotta find a middle ground here. So let's talk about choosing the right cannabis. Because walking into a dispensary can feel very overwhelming. We've luckily we've experienced a lot of different I want to say like I don't know, like pathways when we go to a dispensary, how there's some bud tenders that are very educated, there's some bud tenders that are depending on if you're going in as a recreational, you hit the kiosk and you don't even talk to someone.
That's right.
Like it varies a lot by each dispensary how it's ran. But first and foremost, we really want to think about, let's actually determine a goal. What are you trying to achieve by getting cannabis?
Yeah.
So where does that start, right? So THC, let's break that down. THC is where you kind of that's where you get the high feeling. Yes, that's what everyone causes that high feeling. It's psychoactive and intoxicating. Okay, so that's the biggest difference. So it will boost your appetite. It will probably help you sleep or to make you feel some type of relief. A lot of physical pain, I think, is managed with THC.
Yeah, there's this almost a myth. I don't know if it's a myth, but this misconception that in managing pain or insomnia, that CBD by itself alone will do it. And for the vast majority of people, that is not true. For sleep or managing insomnia, you need a little bit of THC with the CBD. And for most people who are doing pain management, they need a 1-to-1 ratio. But still low.
Right, absolutely. And so I think that's another thing of understanding that there has to be a combination of both, that entourage effect. And when it comes to cannabis, we want to focus on the whole, like just like we are focusing for mental health and focusing on physical, about the holistic, the whole body of the person. For cannabis, you need to focus on the whole plant, which means having a little bit of THC and CBD. That's what makes it the most therapeutic, the most have the most change that you see. Now, when it comes to CBD, it is psycho.
Like non-psychoactive.
So no, it is psychoactive, but it's not intoxicating.
There we go.
So it is psychoactive, but it's not intoxicating. It is very anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial, antifungal, anti-inflammatory, to antioxidant. Like there's so many things when it comes to CBD, and honestly, it's just a mood booster. It's a great mood booster where you can just take it on a daily basis without feeling any type of high feeling. But you feel better. It makes the day go by easier. I don't know how else to explain it.
It does. Yeah, and what the anti-inflammatory piece is the kicker for me. That's been my stepping into taking more CBD, because as I've gotten older, I've noticed that my body is always trying to fight inflammation. And that's in part, our diets and whatnot. But sometimes if you haven't gotten enough sleep, or you've done too much in reference to exercise, or you've not exercised at all, there's all these things that affect your body's inflammation. And inflammation leads to disease. And so if you can manage inflammation in your body by diet, good diet, sleep, you know, adding CBD to your
Yeah.
lifestyle, then you're doing a good thing for yourself.
It's funny because it's like this plant can be used in so many different ways.
Yes.
Right, so you can eat it, like the actual plant, you can eat it,
Yeah.
not, and I'm not talking about
Yep.
eating it with like brownies or
No,
anything.
you can literally eat it.
It's a green superfood, like
People actually put the leaves in their salads.
Yep.
You can
Salads,
actually
smoothies.
smoothies.
Yep.
Yep.
So we have that part. The
Yep.
seeds it has incredible nutrition value.
Yep.
They're comparable to chia seeds.
Yeah.
I think even a little bit more,
Yeah.
honestly, when it comes to omega-3s and things like that.
Yep.
Then we have it, where you can also make it into tinctures, things like that, where you
Oils.
press the oils out, right?
Mhm.
It's all because of the essence of the plant itself has so many benefits. So let's start talking about the stigma and the misinformation that we hear.
Mhm.
Cannabis makes you lazy. That's the biggest thing I hear.
And that's the funniest thing to me because even when I had not yet started to explore cannabis for medicinal reasons, everybody I knew who smoked had jobs, were athletes,
Just
They were
creative
always
artists,
Yep.
right?
So I was like, where does that come from? And I think it's more if a person is using it to be lazy,
Right.
then yes, they're going
Good.
to be lazy. Again, it goes back to intention setting.
Yeah.
How are you using the substance? Why are you using the substance? If you really just want to be chilling on your couch, that's what you're going to be doing.
Yeah, and it's funny because I use it for more. Sometimes I use it for my relaxing, but also I use it sometimes for my ADHD to help me focus and be more productive.
Yep.
Get myself up and moving a little bit
Yeah.
more faster when I have the procrastinations or the Sunday scaries where I just don't want to do anything. I don't want to do anything, but it's just like, okay, a little bit of push and it gets moving. So cannabis does not make you lazy. Let's just
Yeah,
it does
kill
not
that
make
myth.
you it does not make you lazy. The next myth I have here is it's just about getting high.
Right, that is definitely not the myth. One of my favorite things that I learned years ago is how many athletes use cannabis, like before they go and do their workouts. And I was just like, they're obviously not using it to get high because you would not be doing well if you're doing that. And so no, that is not a thing.
It pushes you so much farther. So you get the relief, you aren't just looking for the high, but it's more the fact of even think about anxiety, depression, PTSD. You're not just trying to escape, but you're trying to manage and continue that day-to-day functioning.
Yeah.
That's where it comes from. You can get that even without the intoxicating feelings.
Absolutely. Absolutely, because if you're managing depression or anxiety and you're tending to not want to rely on pharmaceuticals and you figured out, okay, which strains or which amount works best for you in combination of THC and CBD, you can actually, if you're using the go low, you can actually microdose throughout the day without having the psychoactive high effects.
And it's interesting. I think that's another thing people need to be more aware of, that there's a difference between being high and being medicated.
That's right.
And how that you can take low doses and still feel the effects, but it does not give you that high feeling. You're able to be a lot more productive. You're able to get things done. It does not get you that sedative in the couch feeling.
Right.
It's just enough to kind of get you going and get you again being able to be functional.
Yes, right.
Let me see the next one. Only stoners use cannabis. So as a therapist, as well as professionals, as a yoga therapist,
right.
As people who we pay our bills, we do our things, we're working professionals. We're using it. It's not taboo. It's not something to be looked down upon. Right. There's lawyers, doctors, we're all using it, and it's just the fact of this is where it comes, I guess, to more of the privacy and depending on how you want to say you're engaging in those activities, because some people, again, because it's been so stigmatized, they don't want to even admit that they're using it.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I stepped into medical cannabis when the state of Maryland brought medical cannabis on. And I come from a tradition of, I'm a preacher's kid, and so as a fundamentalist Christian who grew up in a Pentecostal household, cannabis was off the table.
Right.
And I did not experiment as a teenager. I did not experiment in college or in my 20s. I came to cannabis when it became legal in Maryland because I have fibromyalgia. And so I was looking to better manage pain
Mm,
because the pain medication options out there just weren't working for me. My digestive issues that would come up in reference to using those things, or they just didn't work at all, or they worked and had other side effects that were really not good for me. And so that's when I came into experimenting with cannabis for pain, and then eventually started looking at cannabis as a spiritual substance to use for journey work and healing of old trauma.
And I think that's what I want everyone to kind of get a better understanding is that you have to reclaim cannabis and reclaim it as how you want to have the relationship with it.
That's right.
It cannot be the relationship that other people have put on to it. It cannot be the fear and the stigma of it because, even, when I tried in high school, I was like, nope, this is not for me, let it go.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've seen plenty of people, do it. But then it's like, oh, when I was actually, became a medical patient and tried it again, it was a totally different experience.
That's right.
It was an experience that I was like, this was not what I thought when I was in high school, this is not what everyone was running around trying to get.
That's
like this was not street, this was higher quality.
Yes. Yes, know your cannabis.
Yeah,
source.
know your cannabis source. Get the and that's one thing, if you're going to a licensed dispensary, they should have the COA, which is the lab testing, where it tells you the breakdown and what's in it and things like that. So therefore you know you're safe, right? But it's just it wasn't the same. And so when I started to invent my relationship with cannabis, it was like, oh wait, I haven't really slept good since I was 16. Literally insomnia was absolutely crazy all through college. Insomnia was just really bad, and I would just be sleeping during the day and just be up. But then I'm just like, but it's because I could not find anywhere else to get any rest.
Wow.
And so working 2 jobs, trying to get all my hours as it was too much. And when I finally I tried an edible, and I was like, I slept for the first, and I was like, hold up now, wait. You don't mean to tell me I could have been sleeping, and actually feeling rested, because I would wake up and not feel like I never went to sleep.
Yeah.
Feel like I was just as tired as when I went to sleep. So therefore, it's like my brain actually kind of got quiet.
Yeah.
And I was using my own coping skills. I was using the trying to calm the racing thoughts, and I've done it all.
Yeah.
And it was still something that it just would not quiet down. And so, but taking a piece of edible at night, I was able to sleep throughout the night. I woke up actually feeling refreshed, actually feeling like I know I went to sleep. I know I got 8 hours.
Yeah.
Like it felt good. It was a good 8 hours, So just understanding that we have to change our relationship with cannabis and not say that, oh, because I see this person using it, this must be bad.
Right.
Or because you don't agree with how the person is using it, it must be bad.
Right.
You have to create your own relationship with it.
There we go.
And it cannot be based on everyone else. It has to be your own personal.
It really does.
And so if it's gonna be, okay, I'm gonna try this and start very low and just see how this works with my system, because everyone's system is different.
That's right.
And because a 20 milligram for you might not be the same for me as 20 milligram, right? And so our bodies interpret it differently. It might make you more happy, it might make me a little bit more down. So but we have to be able
Very
to
true.
gauge that this is it's very much personal, a personal path that we have to choose for ourselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what else in reference to breaking the myths?
So let's see here. We have, let's see. I think that was pretty much, that was the biggest myths, it makes you lazy. It's just about getting high and only stoners use cannabis. Those are absolutely untrue. And there's been, I'm sure there's gonna be hopefully a lot of people that actually are familiar or a little bit more familiar with cannabis can be like, you know, this helps me with this helps me with that. Like everyone has again a different experience with it. The most important part is that it does not, it's not a one size fits all.
Right.
And how you use it and how it can change from person to person. We just need the education around it.
Absolutely. I think education is going to really be key as the months and years continue to evolve. The federal government is looking at possibly legalizing it, which will completely change the landscape
Yeah.
for cannabis. But until then, the educational piece is still going to be important, because we can no longer afford to go by this idea that someone else says it's not good. Someone else says it's illegal and you shouldn't use it. Someone else says only stoners or criminals use it, right? We can't continue to do that with anything. Really.
Yeah, honestly, yeah.
It is time for people to really look at this plant and say, okay, what do I need to know more about in reference to cannabis? Even if you don't yourself choose to use cannabis, I am certain you know someone in your life who uses cannabis either recreationally, therapeutically, or medicinally, as well as spiritually. And so maybe getting that bit of education will help you take down the judgment
Yeah, take down the
of that
judgment.
person.
Absolutely. And I think that there's, you know, there are so many nuances
Absolutely.
in the cannabis space right now, where we really have to just be able to do our own research, but also have credible sources. And I think that's where we're leaning towards right now. We're definitely getting a lot more credible resources coming out, and not just you know, listening to Joe Schmo and you know, and actually doing a little bit more research ourselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I think that's, I mean, I think this was a good tie
Yeah,
out
it's one of our favorite topics.
yeah. We can talk about this for a very long time, but let us know what different comments or different topics that you find that you found helpful with this, as well as what topics that you would like us to explore as not only both licensed therapists, but certified cannabis educator and coach, trained yoga therapist,
Mhm.
and both of us are actually trained for the psychedelic journeys as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got a lot here. So again, like, comment, and subscribe, and you know, let us know what it is that what's your relationship been like with cannabis, and how do you need to maybe take another look back at it, or maybe is there some way that you can also allow whether friends or family to understand a little bit more about cannabis.